Hi, I'm Maria. I just finished Master of Science in Sustainability Management, and I come from Chile.
My name is Dastan. I'm from Kyrgyzstan, and I've just finished my master's degree in electrical engineering.
My name is Nabil. I'm originally from Malaysia. I graduated with a Master's of Public Health.
I'm Elizabeth. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in business administration, and I am from Uganda.
I love studying in the US because you learn not only by studying but also working.
So OPT stands for Optional Practical Training. It's a temporary employment that is related to the field of your major.
Students who are eligible for OPT can apply for up to 12 months.
My OPT gives me a chance to explore different parts of myself that I have not before. I currently work as an accounts payable specialist, and there's so many skills I've acquired from the job that I'm doing. I'm very grateful for it.
OPT in the United States is an eye-opening experience for me. I work in a research lab investigating Alzheimer's among aging African American. I learn the in and outs of the research field, how academia works, and new technology, new discovery every single day.
I work in a company where we provide advice for green buildings. So I applied for the STEM 24-month extension because I wanted to go in deeper in that practical experience, and that I wanted to apply everything that I have learned here back to Latin America.
CPT stands for Curricular Practical Training. It's a program that allows you to work during your school. For me, I wanted to be a part of something significant and global. So during my CPT internship, I explore energy market and emerging technologies. And I'm sure that my CPT will help me to be a part of this transition to sustainable future.
OPT is a chance to take what you studied from your degree and put it into the real world. And I love that there's a chance for us to experience that in the United States.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our today's session. I'm very happy to welcome you today, and I'm super excited because we have another interesting topic for all our students, and it's related to the OPT and CPT, as you've understood from our short intro. And today we have another invitee. We have an EdTalks session, a monthly session that we dedicate especially to those students who've gotten to the United States. They have a successful story and they can share with us their experience. They can share with you some useful tips and tricks. And as I mentioned, we are gonna talk specifically about OPT and CPT. And my invitee today is Mihaela Curmei. So Mihaela, I would just love you to introduce a bit yourself and tell us what you are currently doing, what was your bachelor degree in, and your master degree, and your PhD, sorry.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to talk with you today. I left Moldova in 2013 to pursue my bachelor degree in operations research and financial engineering. I did that at Princeton for 4 years. After that, I wanted to experience working in the field. So I actually did OPT for 2 years while I was working at Microsoft as a data scientist. Following that, I knew I wanted to continue my education. So I pursued a doctorate degree. And as of less than 2 weeks ago, I graduated for my PhD from Berkeley in computer science, and I will be joining Meta as a research scientist in September.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so we will go in details now. We'll go step by step because we want to know more information about how you've got your OPT and CPT. And what we are going to do, guys, is we'll go over some general questions that I have prepared for Mihaela. And at the end of this webinar, we'll allow some time to the questions that you will also give to us. So you are able to submit your questions in the comment section. So please don't miss this opportunity. Address here any question that can be related to OPT, CPT, or anything else. That's more than fine. Good. So I think we can go over the questions that I have prepared for you. And if you can specifically explain us what CPT and OPT would mean and how they differed in your case.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences. Maybe I'll start with the commonalities. They're both are forms of work authorization that allow you to work legally in the US while you are a student at an accredited university. You can take these both during your bachelor's, master's, or PhD. There are, though, quite a number of differences. For You can take unlimited CPT. That is not limited by an amount of time, whereas OPT has a limit of 12 months if you are in a non-STEM related field and 36 months if you are in a STEM related field. CPT is generally, it stands for curricular. The C is for curricular, which means that you can only take it if you already have a job offer in a field that is related to your field of study. So, and this becomes obvious when you go to your designated school official at the university or the school at which you study and you ask for the CPT. They have to approve that the work that you are about to do falls under the curriculum requirements for your major. So it has to be very related to your work. Whereas OPT, it stands for for optional. So you have a bit more freedom on the types of jobs you can take. You can actually take OPT while you don't have a job when you're looking for jobs. So yeah, have a lot more freedom into the types of employment opportunities you can seek.
Perfect. And your CPT, when did you do that exactly? When did you start that? Because we know that CPT can be divided, and some students, choose to take that in their after their first year of study, after the first academic year. Some of them would do that in the second. How was that in your case, and where was that specifically? How did you found that job or that internship? How was that?
Yeah, so I guess another point of commonality for both CPT and OPT, you can apply for them after you've had at least one academic year of study in the US. You cannot, let's say, apply it after 6 months. And typically people take CPT for internships and OPT. So CPT is definitely something that you can take only up until your graduation, whereas OPT you can take it. It has two options: pre-completion and post-completion. For the CPT specifically, I only took CPT during my PhD because my undergrad institution did not allow for CPT. So there, when I had summer internships, I had to apply for OPT as well. Whereas here at Berkeley, they would allow CPT, and I actually had quite a number of CPTs. I did industry consulting for a big part of my time at Berkeley, and I did that during the school year, at which point I took part-time CPT. And that counts as half of the time. So let's say I took 6 months of part-time CPT, that would count as 3 months of total CPT. And I've gotten an offer, and once I got the offer, it was very, very easy to just get the CPT signed for both the summer internship as well as the academic year consulting.
Okay, that totally makes sense. And in the same time, when taking the CPT, those 3 months, the full 3 months, that means that you would have less OPT. So, for example, if you had the same major from 36 of months, you would have a rest of 33 months. Is that correct?
That's not the case. CPT does not take any time from OPT. However, there's an important caveat. If you take more than 12 months of total CPT, then you might not be eligible for OPT. I think there's some rules there that I'm not entirely sure of, but if you take too much CPT, you might be completely ineligible for OPT.
Okay, good. That totally makes sense. And I think I've asked you that, but I will just like to double check on this. How did you navigate the process of applying specifically for CPT and for OPT? How was that in both cases?
Yeah, the processes are very different. CPT being orders of magnitude easier and cheaper. So for CPT, you need first a employment letter. You need an offer to work at some job that's related to your field. With that, and once you have that, it's a very simple process where you go to your school designated official or the international center of your school. Usually they have lots of information about how to apply, and it involves, I'm sure it's different in different places, but for Berkeley, it just involved a link with a very short application where you put in some details about your offer and like a scanned version of your offer, and then you hear back from them within a week or 7 business days. It's pretty straightforward, and it's free. It's free. It does not involve um, the U.S. government to the same extent that it involves when you are applying for OPT. So I'll talk a little bit about the OPT process. So for OPT, you do not need a job letter. You don't need an employment offer to start OPT, or sorry, to apply for OPT. However, you have to pretty much do the same type of process with your school. There's some forms you have to fill, but then you have to submit an application to the USCIS. That's the Department of Homeland Security, to request permission to work. So it is the same sort of procedure. If you've applied for an F1 visa, it's a kind of a similar level of involvement. You have to send copies of your documents. You have to send there's lots of information about all the times you've been in the US, when you left the US. So it's a much lengthier and kind of time-consuming process to apply, and it's not cheap. For the regular application, I think it's around 400 something US dollars. Maybe correct me if you have the correct.
That's correct.
Yes, and unfortunately, the process is not fast. It can take up to 4 months to receive it. So let's say you are thinking of starting, let's say, your job in September. You have to apply by May to get it, and you might not even have a job lined up 4 months ahead of you. So it's definitely a much riskier process. You can only accrue up to, I think, 60 or 90 days of unemployment while you are on OPT. So it's definitely a harder process, I would say. There is a possibility to get it sooner with something known as premium processing, which adds another $1,000 or so to the cost. So it's definitely a more expensive way of getting work authorization in the US.
Okay. And comparing the CPT and OPT, how did it contribute to your academic and professional development? Because we know that CPT, as you said, it stands for the Curriculum Practical Training. The OPT is optional. So we really want to know how would that change the life of the student, and what that means specifically to you.
I think they work really well together. So you would want to do a CPT work authorization while you are doing your studies and you're doing internships or part-time work during the semester. This allows you to learn about different industries, to understand what types of jobs you like and you don't like. It allows you to be known by people in the industry of your choice. So it's important for that part of career development. However, you cannot do CPT after you graduate. So if after you graduate from your program, you would like to stay in the US for 1 to 3 years and pursue employment, full-time employment, then you have to go through the OPT route. And if you've had in the past the CPT experience of having internships, a lot of times you might get an offer from the same place where you've interned, and that's a nice way to have continuity. Or you just have a work experience and you're much more attractive as a potential employee to someone who would sponsor this OPT for you.
Okay, and you've already mentioned that for the CPT, you had the help of your academic advisors. Do they have like an agreement with some companies or some enterprises specifically? Because for OPT, you can find the job yourself. But what about the CPT? Do they help you with that? Do they give you a list, or how it works?
No, maybe I assume this might be different in different places. Berkeley is a very big public university, so it doesn't have the bandwidth to help individual students with job search. So they don't participate at all in the job search, and I'm pretty sure that's more the rule than the exception. So you have to find your own job, you have to get an offer, and once you get the offer, the international office at your school will just handle the paperwork so that you transfer from F1, simple F1 to F1 under CPT authorization.
Okay, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Got it. And how did you secure the internship or the job that was relevant to your field using the CPT and OPT? Because as you've said, you've got that in Berkeley, the CPT and then the OPT, and how that happened and what was I think you've mentioned what position was that specifically, but if you can just tell
I
it.
actually haven't. So, for one summer when I did CPT at Berkeley, I was interning to Google as a research intern. Um, so I would say there's, I think it's similar to however you get jobs anywhere. Maybe earlier in your career, um, you can the primary way in which you get employment opportunities is through applying online. Maybe you participate in some challenges and you get shortlisted, and then maybe you get some interviews. But I think definitely I observed that as I moved from my undergrad to grad school. As you are building your career, you are building a reputation, and then with that reputation, you essentially have a certain level of kind of you're somewhat known in the field, so you can ask for instance, if you're in a PhD program, a lot of times maybe your academic advisor would know someone at a particular company who does work that's relevant to your field, and in that case it's almost guaranteed to satisfy the CPT requirement that it's relevant to your field. But I think generally it is something that you have to do on your own, finding job opportunities. And I think the nice thing about being in the US, I think compared to many other places where I've lived, it feels like a much more meritocratic society. So if you apply and do well in interviews, you might get a job even without having any ins or internal recommendations.
Got it. Yeah, about the internal recommendations, how did your university support you during the CPT and the OPT?
Nothing.
Was there some? They really involved in this process?
They're not involved at all. All they do is just make sure your legal status in the US is valid, and you don't you don't get in like legal troubles with the US government. That's their only goal.
Got it. And can you mention if you had that, what would be some common challenges international students would face during their CPT OPT period? If you had some, or if you can just highlight some things.
I guess there's a couple of edge cases that happen that are a little bit sometimes it's just good to keep them in mind. So for instance, CPTs can only be the end date of a CPT has to be before the end date of a term of a semester. So for instance, if you have a CPT that spans over 2 semesters, you have to be careful and apply for 2 different CPTs for different semesters, and have each of them have an end date that corresponds to the last day of the semester. So there's a couple of like bureaucratic, I think there's a lot of sort of bureaucratic things to keep in mind, and for both processes. And unfortunately, you are the one responsible for keeping all the bureaucratic nuances in mind. There's a lot of exceptions, there's a lot of edge cases. So definitely preparing ahead of time and being very diligent about the details of the process is very important, because if, let's say, you make some mistake and now your F1 is no longer valid, then it's a very, very difficult process to get back in good status. You might even have to go back home and reapply. So it is a little bit scary, the consequences of making a small mistake in this process.
Okay. And as an advice, now that we've overcome the challenges, as an advice to the international students that would, let's say, get this year to studies in the US, they would finish their first academic year and they would be very interested to apply for a CPT. What advice would you give to them, accepting the fact that they should be really really discreet about, really attentive and careful to all the terms that you've already mentioned? What else do you think is going to be like a good advice for them?
Right. So I guess I would focus on getting a job first, because otherwise there's no CPT to apply for. And luckily, the CPT process is much more straightforward and happens quickly. And I think it's a very good way to kind of warm up to the bureaucratic process of getting work authorizations in the US. So I would definitely focus one, getting a job, applying, asking for intros, asking your teachers or professors if they know of a particular role that you might be good fit for. So yeah, focus on finding a job, because once you find a job and it's related to your field of study, getting the CPT is a pretty straightforward experience. And by that time, when you are applying, let's say at the end of your fourth year for OPT, you've had enough experience with this process that it'll be much more straightforward for you.
Okay. And I was also wondering, because you were mentioning a few times already, finding a job. Finding a job would mean that just go on a website, like just browsing for the job opportunities? Is it
No,
like
it means
that?
having an offer. You have to have an offer that has been extended, and the offer has to have a start date, an end date, a compensation. It has to have a job description that then your school official can look at and be like, yes, this fits your course of study. Yeah, it's not just about the fact that you've like looked for jobs. You have to have a employment offer from an authorized employer in the US.
Okay, but actually getting the job would be like you doing this process, you be in
Yes.
charge of applying. So
So
you would.
you are in charge of applying, of interviewing. Schools have career fairs, they have some kind of alumni connection. So there's a way in which the school can be a liaison in getting opportunities. But at the end of the day, it is entirely up to you to get a job.
Yeah, but that's great that the student have this opportunity. I think it's awesome. Now we can focus on the questions that we already have received in our comment section, because there are a lot of them. So we will go over each one of them. So the first one would be, do CPT and OPT change accordingly to our jobs or subjects which we choose while we are studying at the university? I will just read it once again, because I think CPT and OPT change accordingly to our job or subjects which we choose while we're studying university. I'm a bit confused about the question. I don't know if you've got it, Mihaela.
I'm attempt an answer, but I'm not sure if it's the right answer.
The right.
So maybe just to take a step back, OPT and CPT apply for all. You can take them irrespective of your major. Just in terms of like practicality, if you are in a field that's like very hard to find, let's say your field is literature, right? And you would want to work in IT for a summer. That is not does not follow. Maybe there's a creative way in which you can say that this is relevant to your subject, but most likely you won't be able to do so. But then you can still take OPT and do this experience that's not related to your field of study. So I guess maybe just practical answer, if you have a major for which it's kind of harder to find jobs, then I guess you might want to do OPT rather than CPT.
Yeah, because you already mentioned that this would have, if it's about CPT, then it will have to be approved by, I mean, in the employment, in the description, in the job description, it will definitely describe what you will have to be in charge of, and if it's not accordingly to the major that you are doing and the courses that you are taking, definitely it will be, you will not have so many chances of getting that job. So I also suppose is that what Nazreen meant? But Nazreen, if you want to specify and submit another question so we can understand the details, that would be great. Then the other question is, how difficult is it to land a job through CPT?
So yeah, I just want to make sure this is clear. You do not land the job through CPT. You land the job by yourself, and once you have the job, you apply for CPT, which is as soon as you have the job, with a very straightforward process, and you're pretty much guaranteed to get the authorization. So yes, the difficulty of landing a job is it depends again on what you study, which city you're in, how much work experience you have, but it's unrelated to the process of CPT.
Good. Then the next question is, if you don't have CPT or OPT, can you get a job in the USA?
Yeah, so there's a couple of jobs you could do in the US where you do not need to have the work authorization. So the only job you can do legally is have on-campus employment. So let's say you work as an assistant for a professor on campus, or you work in the campus library, or you do some other campus job, and you can work only part-time, up to 20 hours a week, I believe. So that's the only type of job you can have for which you don't need either the CPT or the OPT work authorization.
What I can add here is also that based on the type of visa you are actually in the US, and that will be an F1 type of visa, it will be really difficult to secure a job because basically you would go there only for your studies. And but on the other way, if you are getting the OPT and afterwards you would get, I guess, an extended contract from your employer where they would offer you an employment, then you would just have to be, very careful about your visa type and about other conditions of working there. So it's not only about CPT and OPT, but it's more about the type of visa you would have and about the opportunities that you would have afterwards. Because I'm more than sure there would be more students that would have the contract of an offer from a company, and if they would have that contract, then it will be possible to also get another type of visa. So yeah, I think everything would stick here. Then the next question, is it possible to secure an OPT at NGO or nonprofit organization for a master's program student? In which semester of studying master's program are OPT, CPT option possible?
Mm-hmm. So I believe, yeah, you can work at a nonprofit, and you even if you work at a nonprofit, you might still have a paid position. So you can definitely, let's say your master's is in international relations, or in that case, you can even get like a CPT to work at a NGO that's relevant to your field of study. I think there might be some different rules if it's unpaid internship or if it's volunteering. Maybe it's a little bit different, but I'm not entirely sure what happens if you're not being financially compensated. So back to the timing of when you can take either of the two options. For both of them, you have to have spent at least one academic year in the US. You cannot, let's say, start in the fall and then do some kind of job in the spring. You have to wait until summer. CPT, you can do it only before you graduate. OPT, you can do it either before or after, but I think typically people take CPT for their summer internships, and then they take OPT for their post-completion employment.
Yeah, and maybe we forgot also to mention that if you want to do a part-time CPT, because that's also possible, then you would have to work not more than 20 hours per week, because you would have to concentrate also on your courses, on your education. But if you want to take it during the summer, then that will be a full-time CPT, as Mihaela said. I know in your case it was part-time. Yeah, I think you specified that it was part-time.
No, it was full-time. I did part-time during the semesters. Yeah.
Okay, good. Then the next question, if I have a part-time job, can I get CPT or OPT too? I think we just answered that. Yeah, sure. You can get it. You can have a part-time CPT and a part-time OPT. How have you said that about the OPT? A pre-OPT
and post-completion.
And post-completion, right? Okay. And then the other question, is it possible to get a full-time job through CPT or OPT? I think we also answered to this one.
You get the job by yourself, and then you use this to like cover your legal basis.
Yeah, right. Another question, which I don't really think it's related to our topic, but we will answer it definitely. Which university is very easy for eligibility? Is it eligibility in general, or are you having like specific conditions? Is it like financial eligibility, or what kind of eligibility in general? If you can just be more, if you can just specify what would you like us to answer exactly at what question? If you can just give us more details, Ame. Then the next questions, if I'm taking computer science class, can I do CPT for specific jobs or other jobs related to computer science?
So if your major is computer science, then yes, you can find an internship that is in some kind of IT field, and that will most likely count for your work experience.
Perfect. We also had some questions that we've got before the start of this live, and I would also like us to answer on them. So one of the question is, could you please give info about limitation, if there is any, during work through CPT and OPT? For example, any limitations in work hours? How does it help for further career advancement in the company? I think we specified about the work hours. You can get it either full-time or part-time. Part-time, not more than 20 hours per week. And the full-time will be 40 hours. And regarding CPT, it shouldn't exceed more than 12 months in general. And for the OPT, it can be more than, if it's a STEM field, it can be up to 36 months, I think, maximum. Can it be more, Mihaela? Less?
It can, I think, I'm not sure about 36. I think it might be some number that's bigger than 12 and smaller than 36. So yeah, you have some extension. I think it's a 17-month extension, not a 24-month. I don't know. It might be a little bit different. So I don't want to be dogmatic about that. Other time restrictions, yeah, I guess the only thing to keep in mind is CPT, even though nominally you can take infinite, it's important to keep it under 12 months in order to not be disallowed from OPT in the future. Now, second part of the question. So from the perspective of the employer, most likely they don't even know, are you OPT, are you CPT? This is just some like bureaucratic HR thing that happens in the background. So from their perspective, you're just like someone who interns at their company. So they don't really understand necessarily the intricacies of your legal status. What matters for them is your performance at work, Are you someone that they, so essentially for internships, there are, the way I like to think about them is there are extended interviews. So that you are there for a 3-month interview to prove yourself in a certain way. And I guess it's a two-way street. You want to understand if you like that type of job, if you like that type of industry, if you like that particular role, particular company. But it's also for them a way to understand whether they would want to hire you back. So it's like very related to career development, because a lot of times you get return offers, and your first job out of college or out of grad school might be directly coming from a previous summer internship.
That definitely makes sense. Then another question. I'm currently studying in Kazakhstan, in a Kazakhstan university, but I want to restart my study with another major in the USA. What should I do, and how can I finance my studies? I have only $7,000 per year. I will just answer very short this question. So you should know that we have an Education USA center in Kazakhstan, and we have many of them in different regions. So I would highly advise you to address to my colleagues from there, so they can give you more details on your case. But as I see it, you would be a transfer student. In case if I'm not sure what academic year you are now currently studying in Kazakhstan, because depending on that, it will also give you different chances of getting as a transfer student, and of getting, like, for example, if it's going to be your first year to a Kazakhstan university, you can also apply from the beginning to a normal US university. And about financing your studies, that's part of the research process. So I'm more than sure that my colleagues would definitely help you to create that list, and to give you advices on how to do it correctly, depending on your preferences. So that's what I can add here. Then how can a student apply to CPT? I think we went in details on the process. If I don't know, Mihaela, if you want to stop here once again, but I think
Up to you.
we did it. Okay, so one more question that we've got here: what is CPT OPT? So I think that person connected now to the end of our webinar. You would be able to rewatch this session on our YouTube platform. So we highly encourage you to rewatch it from the beginning, because Mihaela gives a detailed explanation on what is the difference, and gives you advices on what to consider for each type of them. So I think we are good with all the questions, and I think we already can wrap up on all the questions and all the answers that we already gave to our audience. I am very grateful to you, Mihaela, for allowing time to participate in our today's webinar. I really hope that it was very useful to our students. Guys, if you'll have additional questions, you can still leave them in the comments. We would get back to you. Additionally, you should know that Education USA has centers all around the world. So you can find an Education USA center in your country, and you would find there an Education USA advisor, which would be happy to assist you. So please let us know if you will need our assistance on that. You can also find our email address on the website if you need more details on finding the center specifically. We can also send you the instructions. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for being here, Mihaela. I really appreciate that. I wish you good luck with your new position. Congratulations on that. I mean, that's a great achievement, working for Meta. I think that's sometime a dream job for someone, but I know that you worked really hard for that, so good luck with this.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to talk today.
Thank you, guys. You have a great evening, and thank you for your attention.